Independent National Electoral Commission has again done it to Nigerians. They have committed more blunders than anybody could ever imagine. In Adamawa State, the resident electoral commissioner, in the name of Barrister Yunusa Ane, usurped powers above and beyond his authority to illegally announce Senator Dahiru Binani as the Governor-Elect of Adamawa State. And what is most appalling about all this is that a wide range of security officials, most particularly the Adamawa State Commissioner of Police, the Department of State Security, and others, were watching while this illegality took place. The question is INEC pushing Nigerians to the wall? My guest on the show today is Mr. Ahmed Buhari, 2019 presidential candidate of Sustainable Nigerian People's Party, and in the just concluded general election, he was the vice presidential candidate of the African Democratic Party. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
And my regular commentator, friend, Mr. Eric Ifeanyi Abakboro. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for always having me.
Thank you very much. Let me start with you, Mr. Ahmed. You've watched what has been going on in Nigeria.
Yeah, I've been watching the movie.
You couldn't write a better script in Hollywood. We went through the February 25th presidential election.
Yes.
That was the uproar about what happened.
Yes.
People were still smarting from the volcanic eruption of that election. Then we went into the governorship polls. We thought we had seen it all. Then Lagos erupted, Kano erupted, and a few other states in the country.
Yes.
INEC promised that supplementary elections will be conducted to finish and finalize the 2023 elections. We'll come to Adamawa. We'll come to Imo. The brazenness and illegality of INEC seems to be pushing Nigerians to the wall. My first question to you is, what has gone wrong with INEC?
Thank you for having me. You know, sometimes I look at these things and I slightly see them slightly differently. And my concern really is with INEC and beyond INEC. Last time I checked, INEC has less than 10,000 staff across the country that work for INEC as staff of INEC. When the elections are getting closer, INEC goes out of its way to employ what it calls ad hoc staff of about 200,000 people. And of these 200,000 people, there's a lot of concentration on some of the people we consider to be the most educated, on moral grounds, and every other grounds, and we call them professors. And then we invite them to coordinate the process and establish a result that will be accepted by all Nigerians. We still go further down to look for prominent individuals within the society who in their own spaces have actually, been spotted to be true Nigerians who are patriotic. And then we go further down and look for university lecturers. Eventually, we get a lot of people we call youth corpers who have just finished from school, they've graduated, they're educated, they can read, they can write, they can communicate, to now become polling unit officers. So as you can see, INEC in this whole fraction is a tiny fraction. And then the bigger fraction is a fraction of lots of Nigerians myself, yourself, and the people on the streets, who we have given the responsibility to undertake on delivering to us the result that truly is ours. But they get there on the election day and they activate their Nigerian self. I like to call it the Nigerian self because nobody is out of this conversation. Nearly everybody I just mentioned to you cuts across age brackets, cuts across ethnicity, cuts across religion, cuts across cultural lines, cuts across gender lines. But they all are culpable on the day that you expect them to give you the best. So I think like before we started the interview, I said something that I think is very crucial, which is except we would have consequences for the actions that Nigerians perpetrate, especially in times when we need them to be at their best, they will never be able to get the best out of the next set of people that we're going to be given the responsibility to safeguard our democracy. People know that they're going to get away with this, and that is why they do that.
Mr. Buhari, let me dig a little further.
Yes, please.
You've talked about professors, you've talked about lecturers, youth corpers, and the generality of Nigerians. The buck stops at somebody's desk.
Right.
There is somebody Nigerians have hired to call the shots,
Right.
to oversee and superintend this process.
Absolutely.
He is the one that is mandated. He is the one that is responsible. He is the one that is truly answerable to Nigerians in delivering a free, fair, and credible elections. And that individual is in the name of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Of all the gamut and structure you've described, there is only one man whom Nigerians will and always hold responsible when something goes right or when something goes wrong. My question is to you, has this individual in the name of Professor Mahmood Yakubu truly, in your assessment, as a Nigerian, as a politician, as an, I wouldn't want to say unbiased because you're a political participant in the process.
Yes.
Has he truly, in your assessment, delivered on his mandate as the chairman of the Independent
I would
National
say no.
Commission?
I would say no because, like you said, the buck stops on his table. He is the leader of this whole exercise. He heads the commission. But I've also tried to paint a picture where you would understand that he cannot be in all the places at the same time. I've also tried to paint a picture where you would understand that as much as he would give orders, commands, and policies and principles that he expects everybody to follow, there are certain people that are still going to go their own way.
I hold you there 1 second. There are people in the nooks and corners of Nigeria, various communities all over. Returns are coming. We watched it live on national TV
Yes.
after the presidential election.
Yes.
It wasn't the youth corper in Adamawa. It wasn't the resident electoral commissioner in Lagos that went ahead to declare a winner in the presidential election. It was the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission in protest, or rather against the protestations of literally most of the political parties who were present at the returning office.
At the collation center.
At the collation center. Thank you.
Yeah, sir, this is what I'm trying to explain. I agree totally that there were uprisings, there were rejections, there were outcries from different people who did not feel that result was the real result, right? But the INEC commissioner, the INEC chairman's responsibility is to ask his returning officers to hand him over their result. That is why it's a structure. There is a structure, there is a table. They cannot come with a result and he says, I'm not going to take this result because I can hear some people protesting. And that is why the favorite phrase came, go to court.
That's another issue altogether. And I've had my brother here, Ahmed, spoken eloquently from his political experience as a participant and a player in the process. He probably knows better.
No, I'm learning.
I wouldn't say you are learning.
I'm learning.
A presidential candidate, a vice presidential candidate is more qualified than all of us in this room.
The only thing I intend to do is to be objective about the situation.
And I am glad to have you here because
Thank you.
I'm learning a lot from you too. Barrister,
Yes.
I want to ask you a question. You watch the process. You watch the presidential election, you watch the governorship election, you watch the supplementary election. Nigerians at the same time saw what you saw, what I saw, what Ahmed saw. And my question to you is this. Do you agree that the structure set up to conduct these elections by INEC, by the federal government of Nigeria, by the National Assembly, and all the gamut of organizations, civil society included, should be held responsible for what has happened or what has transpired, or should we hold Professor Yakubu responsible for what has happened so far?
In every civilized society, including what we have now in Nigeria, there's a reason why somebody is the head. There's why someone is the chairman. There's a reason why if you go to a church, there's a pastor. If you go to a mosque, there's an imam. If there's a riot in the mosque, who do you hold?
It's the imam.
Arrest the imam first. If you go to a church and there's problem, who do you hold?
It's the pastor.
You get hold of the pastor. If you come in a family and there's family problem, who do you go after? The man in the house. Unless Nigeria begins to call a spade, unless we begin to hold people in position for what they did. As a matter of fact, Mahmoud has given us enough reason to arrest him. The law which we are using right now, the Electoral Act, says that he has 14 days to declare the presidential election. Why? Because 14 days gives him enough time to get a feedback from his, as my colleague said, the lieutenants would have reported back. But apart from the lieutenants, we are the residents of this society. He is part of this society. He was watching the reports on television, on news, people seeing the mayhem. It did not bother him. The fourth day, in the middle of the night, he makes an announcement. That is suspect. That in law is suspect. It is not enough for you to say that, what is his name, that Caesar's wife is above board. It is important that Caesar's wife must be seen
to be above board. Hold it right there. We'll take a short break and we'll come back to this discussion. Welcome back to the show. Ahmed.
Yes, sir.
You raised a lot of issues that I enjoyed listening to, and I would like to interrogate one or two of them a little deeper. You're a young man.
Not so young.
You're a young man, at least younger than I am, and very well experienced, very well educated, well experienced, traveled, and it's a pleasure really having you on the show. For our youth population that watches this show, you are an ideal, very ideal participant in the process that the youths can look up to, can look at, and also listen to some of the things you have to say. Let's talk about the issue of culture. I spent most of my life abroad. in the US to be particular. Him too spent quite a bit of time in the UK. Is it that we Nigerians, by extension most of Africa, but worse here, that it is culturally impossible? Is it that it is culturally impossible for we Africans to do the right thing and elect appropriate leaders? This is 60, 62, 63 years after independence. A country like Nigeria, 200 and something million people, the most populous black country on the planet. Nigeria could very easily boast as having some of the most brilliant human beings on this planet. We do well in every part of the world. We prosper, we outshine everybody else in academics, medicine, law, engineering, neurophysics, you name it. And we have received accolades everywhere in every country we Nigerians have called home.
Right.
How come we can't get it right in our own country?
Is that a question?
Very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for having me again, and I appreciate the things that you've said. Again, before I go any further, it's important that I let everybody know that we're all learning, that it's a process, and I'm glad that the conversation is happening in a way that we're cutting across divides so that we can get different viewpoints and then bring everything to the center and see how we can see what we can use moving forward to sort of resolve these problems. They are real problems, they are real concerns, and people say, oh, Nigeria is so corrupt. And I say, we've really always been like this. Nothing has really changed from how it has always been. The reason why we had the Civil War was on the premise that there was a lot of corruption going on. The reason why there was a coup in 1966 was still on the same premise that there was corruption going on. And so, over 6 decades later, we're still talking about the same corruption. I've listened to a few speakers who say there's something fundamentally wrong with the black man's mind. And the black man, I don't know, maybe just how we've been created, probably are not designed to work under this framework or the structure that we have borrowed to help us achieve some of the things that we want to achieve. The days of Omadioha, people don't try this nonsense. But this is us. We have borrowed this religion, borrowed that religion, taken that culture, accepted this other one from this other side. We have mixed it all together and said this is our new model.
And Confucian tribes.
And then now we're finding it so hard to even identify who we are before understanding where we want to go to. And these are real problems. Go back to 200, 300, 400 years ago. We were decent when it comes to our morals, when it comes to respect for institutions. That was because at that time, the things that guided us, the things that cautioned us were real. They were us, designed by us, for us, by us. Now, well, we probably will say something now. Somebody will say, oh, how can you go and kill the INEC chairman? Or can you take him to court and sanction him to be murdered or to be prosecuted and then, face the firing squad? That is barbarian. And then a whole mammoth crowd will rise and say, this is not human rights, blah, 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 blah. And then we start talking about something else. So many people or so many cases that have erupted that would have probably dealt with many years ago, but different groups will come out to say, no, that's not the process. And now this is the problem. We've allowed every single person around the world to have a mouth or have a say in our matter. And that is why there are certain cultures in Nigeria and Africa that will say, if you see them fighting in that family, they will resolve it by themselves in that family. We do not need anybody to come and interfere. But we saw how the results came out, and barrister here said something. He said INEC is given 14 days to wait for the lieutenants who are on the field to bring the results, and then collation is done, and then announcement is made. And then he said he made an announcement in the night. There was nobody that said it should be made in the morning, afternoon, evening. It was a collation process. Now, the Electoral Act does not say you cannot mention or announce a winner by 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. as the case may be. The announcement will be made when the collation is completed. I want us to understand that the reason why we're having problems in this political space, especially a borrowed democratic arrangement, is really seriously because we have failed to groom a generation of people who would truly act as politicians and not activists.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
When was the last time? Do you recall the last time the presidential election result was announced by 2 a.m. in the morning?
In any other country?
Yes, I have. I remember the time that Obama won the late Army General
John McCain.
John McCain. It was announced in the night, sir. Their acceptance speeches were given in the dead of the night.
No,
but on a serious note, it was not announced in the morning. It was not announced in the afternoon. It was in the night.
Yeah, let me.
I remember very well. Except you can point out to the Electoral Act and tell me in the Electoral Act that this section says you cannot make an announcement. In fact, I don't want an announcement to be delayed.
Ahmed.
From the time the collation was completed, and say you're going to announce it in the morning or in the afternoon.
Ahmed.
Yes, sir.
From 1960. From 1960 till 2003. Can you give me 2 instances in Nigeria where elections were announced by 2 a.m. in the morning?
By what time?
By 2 a.m. in the morning?
No, I can't remember anyone that was announced at 2 a.m. in the morning. But I'm saying,
you understand why people are suspect.
I know, but everybody was there. Do not forget that for that collation center to hold, representatives of the different political parties must be present. The same Nigerians will come out, sir, to say, wait a minute. You finished collation around 4 p.m. yesterday. Why did you not announce it immediately? You now waited till the next day because it was late?
Okay. I'm coming back to you. Barrister, I'll let you take it.
You mentioned Obama. Let me take that. The announcement you saw in Obama was not from the returning officer. There was not any official report from the United States. The United States returning officer returns about 2 weeks later. Check the law. It was not him. It was just the pressmen.
Electoral college, electoral results. I was going to interject that.
In other words, it took longer
Let me finish.
than the 4 days or so.
No, it takes. That's the official one. What you were talking about was just unofficial.
Returns coming from every state. The electoral college
officer in the United States is still relaxing, picking up all the information. So not saying anything. Returns in the United States made about 2 weeks after the election.
Which, if we had done, we would have been more suspect of the situation.
No. As I'm talking to you now, the system you are now saying they were right. We are still getting results of our presidential elections. It has not finished. More than 70 locations did not have elections, and they were going to have a result. They never did. You go to IREF has not uploaded all our results up till now. On what? And the Electoral Act says that the Mahmoud, or the INEC chairman, cannot announce a result without looking at the basis of the result. If you look at the problem he had with Dino Milai, Dino was 100% right. The chairman was announcing a result on a piece of paper. Nothing on the IREF. Nothing on the IREF. He's supposed to be cross-checking and say, based on so here, I'm making this announcement. He did not. It happened before of us, but I don't want to spend much time on that. What I want us to see is this, and this is the problem with the country. If you are a head of any position, you are held responsible for the success or
failure of the organization.
That place. Unless we develop that culture, we will not go anywhere. Fish gets rotten from the head. From the head. We want to look at whether this fish is okay. Look at the eyes, look at the head. And that's enough to take it.
Let me.
Let me know before we, please, excuse me, just give me a second.
Sure.
What we're developing here is a culture of impunity, where the leader is Always absorbed. Oh, he didn't do anything wrong. Like the government itself. The president of the country has not said nothing. With all the massacre in the country, the president of Nigeria has not uttered a word. In America, one person gets killed, the president responds. Here, thousands get killed, nobody says anything, and he's still right. He's still right. And people will come to justify him. He's a good leader. Something is wrong. Fundamentally wrong. And unless we get back to it, people must take responsibility for their actions. Okay, right now, let's say we know how to do it. Because in Adamawa, what you're asking about, the same chairman of INEC is calling for the prosecution of the INEC rec that made the announcement in Adamawa. The same INEC chairman.
I was coming to that.
He is calling for prosecution. That man is being thrown under the bus. Why? Because the whole world is now shouting. But that same whole world shouted
For
during
presidential
presidential
election.
election, and the same president, the same chairman that is calling for prosecution of the INEC in Adamawa
So
did not call himself for prosecution.
Said go to court.
He said go to hell.
All right. Let me, Barrister, how'd you loud and clear? I would shift the narrative a little bit. Because we're calling for the crucifixion of INEC. But INEC is not the only player in this whole system. We also have the security agencies. We have the Department of State Security. We have the Nigerian Police. We have the Nigerian Intelligence Agency. We have Defense Intelligence Agency. I can go on and on and on and on.
They're all stakeholders.
They're all stakeholders, Ahmed. These are strategic and principal stakeholders in this process.
Yes.
These various agencies are those who are actually given the mandate to protect us domestically and from foreign aggressors.
Absolutely.
And how can we have these agencies, the Nigerian Intelligence Agency, Department of State Security, the Nigerian Police, Defense Intelligence Agency, and I'll add the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. And I'll tell you what. And with all these agencies, Nigeria is spending billions and billions and billions of both naira and dollars to protect us from both local and foreign aggressors.
Yes.
And we could not get the simplest, the easiest, the most fundamental, the most elementary of intelligence produced and provided to the Independent National Electoral Commission on what was happening across the 36 states in order to give the man here some level of information to assist him in decision making. Because now we are all blaming INEC. INEC is not the only institution given the responsibility of conducting free and fair elections. We spend so much money on the military. We spend so much on in fact, they were parading all manner of military equipment in Lagos, I remember. They gave them new uniforms at the defense, the police headquarters. The level of armaments that was provided to the whole defense agencies was incredible. In fact, at the end of the day, if we put in terms of dollars, cents, and naira of what was spent on this election, Nigerians may fall off the skyscraper. My question is this: why are we not holding the security agencies accountable for this malaise?
It's in our nature. We look for the easiest target, and then we focus on the easiest target. And you see, the same people you just mentioned, the NIA, the EFCC, the DSS, the police, the military, every stakeholder that was invited, because as a candidate, we were invited to all of those meetings in the build-up of the election. And when you want to criticize Mahmoud or Yakubu to an extent, I would want to say, you know what? I attended those meetings and I saw openness, and there's certain gray areas that were not, INEC didn't quite make clear rulings on. and they will throw it back to the candidates and say, what do we all think? Sometimes we will take a vote on certain issues. I remember a time in 2019 election that they said, we don't want to see military at the polling unit, and the policemen should not hold gun. They will use it to intimidate our people. 2023 now came, and I saw some people say, the military police came there, they didn't have any gun, they didn't have anything. Look, I know that we are all pained. I know that we're all bittered. I know sometimes we want to see these things happen the way we see them happen in other climes, even though we don't want to look at the routes that happens in other climes sometimes when we're making comparisons. But I want us to understand that all of these agencies that you just mentioned, including the paramilitary and the military and the civil society groups, they are all Nigerians. It is all of us, divided across ethnic, religious, political, socio-political, gender lines. And we still go to those spaces and we still perpetrate all of this nonsense. And that is why, yes, a fish may be rotting from the head, but I might still eat part of the tail because it's still nice. And the tail might be getting bad, and probably the head is still okay. The point I'm just trying to make, not to hold brief for anybody, not to defend Mahmoud Yakubu, but I'm just saying that I have seen it happen in this system where the leader will sit down with all his subordinates and give an instruction, and they go out and they do otherwise. Sometimes he's lucky enough to get a return of signal to say that was where the problem happened. This is the person that is responsible. Sometimes everybody is a problem.
Let me tell you my problem. Nobody is being held responsible.
Absolutely, and we all agree.
Nobody's going to prison.
And it goes to the same question with this cashless policy that happened a few weeks before the election. I would say something. I said, if Emefiele is coming out to say clearly that we release this new notes to these banks, and then these banks say, yes, we received them from the CBN, and then we are saying that we don't have any money, I would have expected that every single bank MD would be invited for questioning. Because we do know from words on the street, that there were certain bank managers who were selling 100 million naira for 130 million naira, making 30 million naira on every 100 million naira they are ready to give to an individual that can afford it.
Ahmed, let me interrupt you for a second. Listening to you.
Yes, sir.
You are gravitating towards holding our leadership responsible. First question I have for you is that, are you saying that leadership is the problem?
Leadership is the problem as well as followership. It is a two-way thing.
If you say followership,
yes.
If you say followership, and you have a situation where the followers supposedly were reacting to a rigged election, were protesting a rigged election, and they're not being accused of treason. The last time they tried in Lagos,
yes,
they were shot at.
Yes.
So they do, they're damned. They don't, they're damned. What do we do in a country
I would
like
explain.
this?
So, I said something earlier about trying to make these comparisons. The 2020 presidential election in America, till today, there are certain people in that country, a huge percentage of them, who reject that election, including the opposition. And for the first time in a long time in the United States, we've never seen where the loser of an election would say, I'm not going to congratulate the other guy, And the point I'm just trying to make is, we are always going to have a lot of people who will say, we do not accept, we do not agree. The INEC chairman's responsibility is to say, my returning officers, give me what you have. And again, I remember there were people from certain political parties who said, we have these numbers and we're going to publish them to show the world that indeed we were also carrying out our own assessment where it was necessary. And, I will be honest with you. Everybody is going to come with different numbers.
But you know the problem I have?
Yes, sir.
You talk about the US 2020 presidential election. You know why you can't even make that comparison?
Okay.
Even Trump appointed judges told him there was no malpractice in the election. And Trump's team, if I recall, Barrister, please correct me if I'm wrong, Republican assembled lawyers try to shop this narrative to several Trump-appointed judges, and not a single judge balked. Unanimously, every one of them said to him, the election.
That does not stop the
No.
position that Trump does not accept it.
What I'm saying is that Nigeria would have been better if the judiciary could be trusted to do the right thing. But that's not take it from me.
In terms of that comparison, that is a false equivalency. The reason is this. In the United States, we don't have a monolithic presidential election. We don't have a monolithic election in the United States. United States elections are run by states. Every state runs their own elections. They're completely independent.
Yes.
They run their elections. So the Republican states are more than 30. The Democrats is about 20. And if the man won in the Republican states run by Republicans.
True.
It does not still stop the point that the man said the election was...
What it stops is that there were Democrats that ran their states, Republicans won in those states. What I'm saying is that we are having one man in charge of the whole country.
Okay.
And that man writes an election. And we are saying that he is to be very careful because he has this monolithic control. I think we need to decentralize this thing.
Please hold your thought. Hold your thought a second, gentlemen. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program, gentlemen. Very exciting and interesting discussion. Mr. Ahmed, you were about to chip in on something, and I stopped you abruptly. Please.
No, it's not much of a big deal. It just goes to show that there are a good chunk of people in the United States who still reject elections. The same way we have in Nigeria, the same way we have everywhere around the world. It's self-interest in most cases. And I tell you one thing. When Buhari kept losing the election, the system was bad. When Buhari started winning the election, the system was great. This is who we are. I think this conversation should really start from how we can change the generational thought process. And it's getting worse by the day. I know we've had these conversations with different people, and we say those morals that we hold very dear to our hearts, that shape us, that control us, that tell us what I'm doing is bad, I should not do it anymore. I'll give you an example. Abuja is relatively cleaner than many cities around Nigeria. Yeah? And as we're driving down to your studio today, on a very clean road, I saw somebody wind the glass down through a bag of used food, and then followed up with a bottle, and I'm sure, I didn't see clearly, but the toothpick also followed. But you see, the problem here is, I now honked, bing, 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 I was upset. So I drove to his side, I'm like, just looking, what's your business, leave me alone. Now, this is the reaction from a lot of people, even when you find them doing something wrong.
Ahmed.
And these things might look like very small things, but they're the things that come together and make us do the wrong things when we get an opportunity. I'll tell you something, sir. If you look at the civil service structure that I believe is the conduit for us to get a system that can give the dividends of democracy from the three arms of government. Go there. Nobody is prepared to stand on the grounds of morals. It's about how does it benefit me today.
Okay, let me weigh in for a second. I happen to be old enough when a general by the name of Murtala Muhammad removed General Yakubu Gowon in 1976 and became a head of state.
Yes.
When Murtala Muhammad took over as head of state, you went to a secretariat in any state, a federal secretariat in any state, civil servants will come in strolling by 10, 11. Almost every senior civil servant in Nigeria,
it was 45 years ago,
had something, their own little business gig they were doing.
Yes, same like now.
Murtala Muhammad takes over.
Yes.
Within weeks,
yes,
you could see your permanent secretary
yes,
come to work by 8 a.m. in the morning.
yes. So he got killed.
Within weeks, civil servants will queue up at the secretariat.
So he got killed.
And almost every governor of the states, then military,
Yes.
many of them will arrive at the doorsteps, at the gates of many secretariats to be sure whether you are commissioner, whether you are minister, permanent secretary or director.
Yes.
If you didn't get to the secretariat by 8 a.m. in the morning,
Yes.
you go home and you get a query.
Oh, yes.
I am not saying those days should come back, but I'm pointing out, what I'm pointing out is that this is what leadership can do.
Yes.
If you have the right leader, a right leader comes with the right people. I remember Shehu Yaradua of blessed memory. Umaru Musa Yaradua, sorry, of blessed memory. Just the 2 years that he was the president of Nigeria, you could feel his impact. 2 years. Why God took him away from us, only God knows. And Umaru Musa Yaradua was known to have had instructions to every minister of his government.
Yes.
Never, under any circumstances, to give preferential treatment for any member of his family.
Yes, but if you remember...
I'm coming. Where I'm driving at is this. Where I'm driving at is this. When you have a leader, when you have a president, when you have a governor, when you have a minister who is well-intentioned, who understands governance and the responsibilities and obligations of holding people's mandates, this country may just be a better place. But we have to stop looking at ourselves. We have to stop looking at ourselves as being members of one ethnic group or the other, one tribe or the other, one religious group or the other, one this or that or the other, and focus on our national development. Focus on what is good for the country.
Yeah.
Focus on what is good for the next generation of Nigerians so that this country can finally prosper. Barrister, please, can you make your own comment?
My comment is very simple. It comes back to what you're heading to and what I said before. The fish gets rotten from the head. Failure of leadership. In every country, it is the leader that sets the pace. We're talking about INEC. If the INEC man was straight and clean, INEC would be better than what it is today. If the president of Nigeria was straight and clean, the decadence we are seeing even in the universities will not be the way it is today. If the vice chancellors were doing what they were supposed to do, the reason why we now started bringing professors from universities that they should know the best, but now we found out that, alas, they're still part of us. Now, leadership is what has collapsed in this country. And you can never blame the follower in any situation. Never. Never. In an abuse situation, blame the abuser, not the one that's abused. We are abused. The ordinary man in Nigeria is completely abused. It's the leadership that has failed. The party, as I started the last time, I said the parties have they have failed the structure of criminality that they have, which is what the truth is. Now, most of their leaders in those parties, they have no idea of what a party is. No ideology, no philosophy, no direction, no zone. And so also, and when they get to the leadership, the same thing. So now we are having a big problem. We need to hold our leaders responsible. The youth must hold their leaders responsible. The country must hold their leaders responsible. Until you put their feet to the fire, nothing is going to change. Nothing will change. Look at it today. We keep talking about America. We can't get there because it's 200 years.
Almost 300.
But look at one man comes from nowhere, a man called Trump, who has major problems in his life. Look at the damage he's done to the United States. And look at where the United States is today because of one man. And the same man wants to come back again. That's enough. In fact, somebody made a statement. He said, we will know how many madmen are in the United States and how many that votes for Trump. And you saw the population that voted for Trump.
Yes.
So that was a major case. And that is what we normally say in the United States, that in the street that every 2 persons you see, 1 person has a mental problem. So those are issues of followership. And followership, we can't blame them. They never set the direction of any countries. It is the leadership that sets
follows the direction.
The direction of the country.
Good or bad.
And that's why they are elected as leaders. They must take responsibility. If our fathers did not teach us to go to school, chances are many of us wouldn't be educated today. And nobody went to school very happily. In those days, we have to carry slate and you get flogged along, and you be crying to school, and you cry back from school because your parents will flog you to school, the teachers will flog you back home. So whichever way you go, there's discipline involved. And that's what it takes. A lot of rich men's children that didn't go to school today because their father failed in enforcing basic discipline. And enforcing, and it must start from the home. Parents have to take responsibility. When parents take responsibility for raising their children about honesty, when you raise your children with stolen money, all of them that are stealing Nigeria's money, stealing Nigeria's, taking bribes all over the place. When you raise children with bribe money and stolen money, they will also end up useless in their lives. Go and check the life of all these rich men. Check the life of some of the presidents and governors' children we have known. Most of them are crackheads, they are drug addicts. And we know them, but we won't mention their name on this broadcast. What we are saying, parents, take care of your children. Teach them the things, the standard of honesty. Then let us start from there. When we start from the family, then before then the churches and the mosques should play their role. When the pastors are busy doing their stuff, the imams are busy doing their stuff, and the native doctors are busy doing their stuff, nothing will work. Everybody has to, at least must take responsibility. And when we start from there, then the foundation will begin. Then we can be able to identify a follower that is not following, and then we can put them straight.
God bless your soul. I think it's very instructive. Barrister Baboro, thank you for your analysis as always, very depth. Ahmed Buhari, thank you so very much for your insightful discussion, for your own analysis and commendations and recommendations of where we've gone wrong and how we can get it right. Leadership, pastors, imams, vice chancellors, parents. Parents most importantly, because charity begins at home. And everything we've learned in our lives starts from the day you were born. What your parents taught you, what your parents did, and how they held your hands, cuddled you, encouraged you. So the home is extremely important. And we can never undermine or underestimate the importance of good parenting, actually. Because there's good parenting, there's bad parenting. So we pray and hope that our country, this country, Nigeria, we as a people, from all parts of the country, that one day, someday, that we will finally elect leaders that will be accountable to us, leaders that will do what we want, leaders that will propagate a better Nigeria for all of us, whether you come from the east, whether you come from the west, whether you come from the north. We are all Nigerians. Let's hope and pray, work hard towards it in peace and unity to promote a better Nigeria for all of us. Thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you, sir.